Hello. This is not gonna be so much about the plot, but just sort of like final thoughts on the foundation and a little bit of the Mule's arch. I'm gonna completely omit Arcadia's arch because I found it a bit more boring. I didn't. I feel like it could have ended with a Mule for me. So yeah, without further ado, basically the Empire is now a mere shadow of what it was, and the foundation is completely self complacent, and there is a conspiracy of the traders that are planning to sort of like attack the foundation because of I don't really remember why, but basically just because of partially because of that sort of like the hierarchies are starting to form inside the foundation. They are very like overconfident because of the Sheldon plan all the time. It's sort of like something that they keep going back to, and what I said before in the previous video about the ellipses actually was more on this part of the book that I realized. There's sort of like a major that has like so like this for the first time in the foundation a dynasty installed in the foundation, and there's like a major that is sort of like the ruler in there, although supposedly the encyclopedists are still the ones that have the power. But yeah, basically this is sort of like the scene when then the Mule arrives. The Mule is sort of like an external threat, a mutant that has the ability of they say calibrate the emotional disbalance in humans. And because he's a mutant, he's not contained in the psychohistoric account of Sheldon. So Sheldon fails to predict this, and this disrupts all the plans of psychohistory. At the beginning, when they first hear about the Mule, well, basically the whole story is that like the Mule infiltrates by pretending to be his own buffon, like by the name of Magnifico, and manages to overthrow the foundation and destroy it. And then we hear about the second foundation, which we did not know before, but it's not only different in its location because it was supposed to be on the other end of the galaxy, but also it's different in the sense that it has everything that the first foundation didn't have and lacks everything that the first foundation had, and that's why they have to be hidden. They don't have the technological power in immediate force, but they have the psychological understanding of psychohistory and the capacity of controlling minds, which is pretty much what Magnifico does. The reason why sort of the Mule is invincible is because it makes like it can make any human immediately loyal to him through this sort of power of like aligning their emotions with the desires that the Mule has, and this lasts forever after, even if he is not present, that will last. So even people that was like willing to risk their lives in order to kill him, now they are not able to even like think of attacking the Mule at all. And this happens over and over and over until basically the Mule has an hegemony, and then he falls into a period of consolidation when he doesn't want to expand, but find a second foundation which he believes to be the only remaining threat on the universe. The second foundation finally shows itself, and there's a series of plot twists that end up with the Mule being defeated. And that's pretty much the story. Like this is a very sort of like superficial outline of the plot, but I wasn't trying to make a summary here. I was more interested in sort of like what this part of the book does that the rest of the book doesn't do. And first of all, I enjoyed the Mule's arch more than anything else in this book. It was the first time that I actually was like thinking about reading the book, and like couldn't put the book down. And then everything sort of like lost a little bit of momentum with Arcadia and her arch of searching for the second foundation, which is still good, but it just didn't interest me as much. uh, Arcadia finds that the second foundation is on Trantor, which that is interesting because there's like again a series of plot twists that of like where the second foundation is in Dazan, no, it is in Kalgan. No, actually, the second foundation is here because if you make a circle, then you end up in the same place. But no, actually, it's a spiral, so it's the furthest place away if the universe is a spiral because Asimov was a, no, sorry, Sheldon was a sociologist, is the center, which is what I thought from the beginning. When they said we're gonna have put the first foundation in one extreme of the galaxy and the second foundation in the other extreme of the galaxy, I automatically assumed that the other extreme would be the center. So that didn't surprise me, it was actually nice. I love being right, so there we go. And sort of like before the appearance of the Mule, sort of like the landscape in the universe, in the galaxy, it reminds me of just the Byzantine Europe, sort of like barbarian kingdoms, a declining empire, a period of an attempted consolidation. So I like definitely there's world building, a lot of world building in Asimov, but there's a lot of just like history in it. It's similar to how like in Song of Ice and Fire, so like George R. R. Martin was just sort of like projecting medieval Europe. To and then adding mythological stuff on top of that, fantastic stuff on top of that. But yeah, that is definitely there, which is interesting and nice to see. And you again see sort of like the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, how much it influenced Asimov in the writing of these texts. But also like some other topics that I found interesting about the premises by which people decide to like the foundationers decide to combat the first foundationers decide to start fighting the Mule. One of the guesses that they have, which is wrong because the Mule is actually sterile, is that it could start a dynasty, and this dynasty could sort of like completely outplay in everything human beings to the degree that it would create like two races, one that is physically superior to the other one. And this is sort of like touches on the topic of eugenics, and I think it's the wrong argument to want to stop the Mule, right? Because more on that in a minute, but I think the topic of eugenics is quite interesting. Like even nowadays we have enough technology to improve humans, to improve the human gene. There are certain sicknesses that are terminal if you have them, that we could be genetically modified in the period of gestation, like even before we are born, in order to not be, in order to be immune to those illnesses. And we don't do that because the governments don't yet know where to draw the line. So there is places in, for example, in Amsterdam, you can choose in Holland, you can choose your son or daughter's eye color. Just like you can modify that, you can modify a lot of things about their immune system, about their metabolism, etc., 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 and probably to a degree their brain capacity, because all of these things of like there's a domino effect on this. The problem is that this all would come with a cost, and the elite would not be formed only by biological resources but also economical ones. So the elite, general is the same thing, you know, like in the medieval times. If you went to war and you had money, you could have a armor, and therefore you would be in advantage against the people that you would be fighting with, because you would have like a greater access to resources. So I don't really know which would be my position on the topic of eugenics, but I think that to a degree it's the wrong argument against the Mule, because the main, like the argument that I would use against the Mule, the reason to fight the Mule sort of like unification of the empire, which is its only goal, which is exactly what Sheldon wanted, right? The Mule for the first time has the capacity of creating an empire that would be consolidated and last over time, or at least that's what they think when they think that it could create a dynasty. Because the other argument is that if it doesn't create a dynasty, then once it dies, it would start, the whole process would start again, but without the security of psychohistory, because we would be wiped out. But if they do think that the Mule would start a dynasty of mutants that would be able to maintain that stability, then there's no reason for them to fight it other than the more sort of like free will argument, in the sense of like, yes, the Mule would be capable of creating a dynasty of an empire that would sort of like be ruled in peace, an everlasting peace, which is what Sheldon wanted. But this would not be a product of the agency of its members, or a product of the structural stability of the empire, but it would be because of the coaction of, that the Mule's powers have. And there's clues about that, like we get clues about that when some of the people that have been converted, when they're reflecting about having been converted, they say that they don't feel any gap in their memory from the moment they hated and wanted to kill the Mule to the moment the Mule converted them. They cannot even think of like they can't remember it, but for them in their minds they always sort of like love the Mule, right? And the fact that there is no gap, no discontinuity in their own personal narrative means that they didn't go sort of like a period of breakdown and to come to the conclusion of agreeing with the Mule, which means that it's not a product of their agency. They have been very much manipulated into it. And to a degree, I'm not fully against manipulating the masses. I don't think that the individuals have a huge, like the individuals of any state have a huge capacity to make the right choice. That's why, you know, people votes and the governors that we have in pretty much any country in the world are a result of people's criterion and them using their own agency for one reason or another, which is really not their own agency, because they are themselves being manipulated, even without sort of like any mental powers, like in this scientific, in this sci-fi story. But what I'm trying to say is that the topic of eugenics and the sort of like readjusting of the emotional disbalances in the in people's minds are like two very interesting topics, and put into question to how much are we willing to renounce in order to achieve sort of like so-called peace, and is it in what kind of peace that would be, because cemeteries are places that are full of peace, and to what degree are we alive if we are renouncing the only thing that sort of like makes us even able to appreciate life. So yeah, that's a little bit of like my thoughts on the Mule's Arch and Foundation series as a whole. I also found, just more on the writing, I found Asimov's reiteration of certain key arguments of the book a bit redundant, and that definitely irritated me a little bit. Mainly, just like every now and then you get a statement about the goals of psychohistory, about what Sheldon wanted to do, about the Sheldon plan, and it's like, I understood it the second time you told me. The third time was okay, but this is the 9th time that you're telling me within 100 pages the same thing over and over and over. And I understand that probably this came out like in magazines or in series, so he was trying to like sort of like make every episode self-contained or chapter, but that was definitely something that I found irritating, not to talk about the inaction, the systematic inaction of the Foundation for trusting the Sheldon plan, which, although it's criticized at the end through the failure of the first Foundation, it's still another downside of this book. But overall, it was a very, very interesting read, and I'm very happy I got through it, and I highly recommend it.